Broxtowe. It is now 7 o'clock. Development and Control Committee from Broxtowe Borough Council. My name is Councillor David Grindell, and I'm chairing this meeting tonight. On the inner circle are councillors who will be discussing and voting whichever way they wish on any planning applications on the agenda. Secondly, we have Stephen Sanders from planning and development. Then we have on my right, we have Chief Solicitor and it's Nicola. Will, and welcome to everyone. The people behind, are there any behind over there or not? Yes, there is. And there's other officers around, and there are some councillors on my right as I'm facing you, who I think might be speaking later on. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies, councillors? Yes, we do.
Halima Khalid.
Thank you very much.
Substitute for Lydia Ball, who's on holiday in Portugal.
Thank you very much. Nobody else? Next item, declaration of interest. Any councillor have any declaration of interest, please?
Yes. I shall just make a statement. I don't think it is a declaration on the item about the Nether Street flats. I know the area extremely well because I do actually own number 1662 Middle Street over the back, but they don't actually butt onto this. There are several residences shifted, but I have property in the area.
Thank you. Is that all right? Okay, if you're fine, then thank you. The next thing is minutes. We accepted minutes of the last meeting, recorded on the 14th of January 2015. All those in favour? Any against? Carried, thank you. Notification of lobbying councillors. Will you make sure, please, that you fill your forms out before we sit at committee? Ladies and gentlemen, lobbying is encouraged by members of the public and residents of the borough on any application that comes forward, and we obviously like this to be done because there are people like developers, owners, you name, who will actually get in contact with councillors and make their objections or whatever. So it's very important that every councillor around this table, around this area, horseshoe, fills in their forms. I know one or two of you have had a few tonight. Thank you. First on the agenda is item 5.1, and it's construct 6 houses. This is a revised scheme, land at the rear of 98 Church Street in Stapleford. I'll ask Stephen first if he'll introduce. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There were no late items for this planning application. It's a proposal for a total of 6 houses. It was subject to quite extensive negotiation and discussion through various schemes as originally submitted, some of which included some loss of playing field to the rear. That has now been addressed. There were some concerns about the impact on neighbouring residential properties. The scheme has been amended, which in our view adequately deals with that. The playing field to the rear is not to be impeached in any way by this proposal. The land on which it is to be constructed does technically comprise part of the protected open space, but having said that, it's been fenced off for a period of 10 years, and it's a hard surface area, as you can see from the photographs there, entirely segregated from the playing space at the rear. And so the view of officers is that it's a good use of a vacant site, makes good use of the land, acceptable impact on neighbours, no impact on the open space to the rear. Our recommendation is to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, do we have any ward councillors, including myself? I ward councillors of the ward. I will speak first then. First of all, this plan, as Stefan has already said, we councillors as Stapleford have had this amended through the planning department and developer for the simple reason is we did not want the park used in any shape or form or be built on. Might look a very small part to a developer, but it's actually a very big part as far as the residents of the town are concerned. And obviously we did not want the football pitch or anything near enough the line taken away. So councillors in Stapleford did object, and right so too. And as I see it at the moment, councillors, the planning application does not cause any problem as far as I could see. Are there any other? No, there's only me anyway. So we'll move on to any councillors wishing to speak. No? Councillor Watts.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think this is a good application. The errors with the previous one have been addressed. It no longer infringes on Higgins Lane Park, and we need a mix of different size of houses. Too often developers are very keen to put very large houses in places, which prices out people who need smaller starter homes, starter units, and so having 6 of these added I think is good news. It also means there's an area of land which has just sat there for many years is brought back into use, and so I think this is a scheme that actually ticks all the boxes.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Watts, you caught me on the hop with that, because as Councillor Steve Barber knows, one is supposed to call, so that we can discuss this debate. I didn't think you were actually anymore was going to speak, so it's partly my fault, and you're too quick for me. The debate. I'll move the debate. Thank you very much. It's seconded. Anyone else wish to speak? Thank you. I do apologise to committee and officers and residents. Okay. Well, to proceed with the vote then. All those in favour of the application on 5.1 for Church Street, behind Church Street 98. All those in favour, please. Unanimous. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Paul. Carried. Good. The next one is 5.2. And 5.2, and is to construct 24 apartments, land between 41 and 45, another street at Beeston. Stefan, would you like to introduce us, please?
Thank you, Chair. There were 2 late items on the list. An objection from 43 Nether Street concerned at loss of privacy from balcony, and that should be modified. Objection from John Clifford School, traffic congestion, noise and other problems, and privacy and light into the school. I should mention that my children attend that school. I've spoken to the council's monitoring officer, and that does not mean I can't give planning advice to this committee. In terms of the substantive matters, the relationship with neighbours, in our view, is acceptable. The distances are 9 metres to number 45, 19.5 metres to number 43. There is adequate privacy, no windows above the first floor facing numbers 43 and 45, adequate screening to patio doors. The design of the scheme is a very helpful and enhancement of the area. The highways issues, there are no objections from the Highway Authority. We think it's a sustainable, helpful and good addition to the local area. There are no substantive reasons in our view to recommend that the scheme be refused. We recommend the planning permission be granted, subject to the applicant's entering into a 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, first of all, we have a speaker, Ward Councillor, and I think it's Councillor Linda Lally. Thank you. You are, I think, given 5.
Evening, councillors. As ward councillor, I am speaking on behalf of Mrs Humperson of 43 Nether Street, and also raising concerns by the governors of John Clifford, who have also emailed me. Nether Street is a very sensitive area. It has, as you've seen, the school, it has a nursery, and it also has quite a heavy industry as well. Recently, parking restrictions at the Station Road junction end were introduced, but it actually has had an effect on the rest of the parking along Nether Street, which is has created worse parking problems almost, and actually pushed it along further outside this development and at the junction. And since parking has been raised by Mrs Humperson and the governors of the school, there is no extra parking. So I'm just raising the issue of the 24 spaces. Is that enough? There is not any parking in the daytime. In the evening there is a little bit more room, but in the daytime, basically there is no space to park. And those things have been raised by the school and the residents. Both have also raised the issue over the height. I know artist impressions can be slightly misleading sometimes, but I was quite distressed in a way to see how tall it is, and I understand the fact that the school is quite a big property opposite, but it does feel quite overbearing in contrast to the residents' properties. Obviously there's also been concerns over overlooking of the residents' property, but the school has also raised those issues as well. And just to really finish with, if this application is successful at all, then I think that the school really is very concerned about the actual building of the properties as well. I'd like for the councillors to consider any conditions that might need to come on. Obviously, that Nether Street is absolutely crazy when the school's coming in and going out. And you know, we have to bear in mind if the building is being taken place at those times, whether we could put some restrictions on any extra traffic on that road from the site. Also noise pollution. So I'd be very grateful. Obviously the safety of the children is paramount. So if there are conditions to alleviate that, and it may be that there's conditions already in there, but I'd like to try and raise those. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have another speaker, and this is Mrs. Humperson. Thank you very much. I'm afraid I can only give you 3 minutes. Starting from now, thank you.
My name is Shannon Humperson. I live at 43 Nether Street, adjacent to the proposed development. I've also been asked to represent Mr. and Mrs Wilkinson, 45 Nether Street, and John Clifford School. Our main concerns are loss of amenity, including privacy, light and overshadowing. It was only when we received the measurements for the development plans last week that we were able to accurately measure and see where the first block would be positioned, and it falls behind the building line of number 43. This confirms our concerns that when standing on the terrace of the first floor apartment east wing, artist impression entrance view, the residents will be able to see directly across into all 4 of the main front windows of the property, the dining and living rooms downstairs and 2 master bedrooms upstairs. Although the developers have agreed to put a wraparound screen on the terrace, this will make no difference to us as our property stands in front of the terrace. It is also clear that the privacy of the ground floor apartment garden will be compromised as the terrace looks immediately onto it. As not all the apartments have a terrace, we would like to propose that this terrace is removed and the patio door be replaced by a large window. If the terrace has to stay, we suggest that only the rear third of the terrace be accessible, with the front rail recessed so residents cannot walk to the edge of the terrace and look over, and also the wraparound panel which is currently proposed needs to be made a little longer. The school are very concerned about loss of privacy also. Artist's impression, the inset balcony view and the view to. Their pupils often change for PE in the classroom, and staff are worried that some residents will be able to see directly into the school classrooms from their apartments, particularly those with terraces and balconies. The residents of 43 and 45 properties are on the north-east side of the development strongly feel that the four-storey building will impact detrimentally on their enjoyment of the natural daylight and sunlight, especially in the autumn and winter months when the afternoon sun will be completely blocked out by the four-storey building. This will have significant effect on the natural light of our living areas and mean we will have to have the lights on much more. The school are also concerned about the loss of light into their classrooms, especially the ones in the single-storey part of the school. These classrooms are on the north side of the building and already struggle for natural light. Erecting a four-storey building opposite will have a substantial cost to the school. If the developers reduce the middle section to 3 storeys, this would be more in keeping with the rest of the area and create more natural light for the parties concerned. This would also help with the density, as we all feel that 24 apartments in such a small area on a narrow street opposite a primary school is far too much. The new development
30 seconds, thank you.
Oh,
30
sorry.
seconds.
Last
You've got 30
sentence.
seconds
The
left.
new development, as it is, gives an overbearing impression, and we all feel it detracts from the visual effect of the old Victorian school buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we come to any order to open the debate. I move. Thank you. Councillors, any councillor wish to speak? No. Okay. Sorry, I didn't see you on mine.
Right, okay, that's, yeah. I'm a little bit concerned about this one. I've got a completely open mind on it, and I've got a few questions I'd like to ask Stefan. The housing density on it, what sort of housing density per hectare are we looking at on this site? The height, that's an excellent picture actually, it shows the bungalow quite nicely, number 45. The height in relation to the height of the school, which itself is a tall building, but I notice only 2 stories. So, but I realise that I appreciate they are big stories, let's say, and the other buildings in the area. Those are 2 of my concerns. I'm not happy about these balconies one bit. I don't like the idea of them at all. And another question I've got, another point I'd like to raise, is access from these, which is going to be quite a number of people, and there's a number of people here who will naturally be wanting to access Beeston Town Centre on a regular basis. Let's hope they are, and let's hope they're going to spend money there and keep all the businesses thriving and make Beeston the Queen Town of the Midlands, which it soon will be. But their access route, I know, or quickest access route might be the one we all use through Jessamine Court, which is far from ideal. Could an access route, or what's your opinion of an access route through to Tesco's filling station for people to get into Beeston Town Centre, up Willoughby Street, for example, or even on Middle Street to the bus station and Tesco's? So those are the questions I'd like answering, looking at first, and depending on the answers, we'll consider how those.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Are there any more councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Watts, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the principle of development here is fine. I think the general concept of what was being proposed was fine. But this is one that they're just trying to get too much into the space. I am concerned about the number of car park spaces, 24 spaces for 23 2-bed apartments. I suspect is going to start causing problems because it won't be long before the cars have so the flats have 2 cars each, and problems will kick in there. So that's one concern. The height of the building is a second. And I think Steve raised a very good point about how does it actually match up to the height of the school. But the first thing that struck me when I looked at this was one of the points that the neighbour made about actually, if you stand in some of the rooms, you're going to be able to look straight into the school classrooms. And I am concerned about that. Equally, the impact on the neighbours. I think what we too much loss of amenity. And whilst I'm all in favour of development here, and I think a good scheme can be designed, I think this is just a bit too big, a bit too intrusive on everybody else, and it needs scaling back a little bit to more comfortably fit within the footprint that's proposed.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Before we go any further, Councillor, before we go any further, I would like to check on the legal system. Sorry, Councillor Owen, I'll take your question there.
Very briefly then, and quite simply, there are too many apartments on that strip of ground, on that very narrow road.
Right. Is there any other... Yes?
I would just like to agree with Mr. Watts there that it's too much in a small area. You have Jasmine Court further on along that has many cars parked in there. You can have 24 cars parked in these flats. And as you rightly pointed out, that normally you have more than one car to a place. The road is very narrow and the kiddies come out and kiddies just don't walk out, they rush out. And although there's yellow lines there, I've gone down there many a time and the cars are parked on the yellow lines. They don't seem to bother about that much, although you could get the police down there. But I feel it is too much in a small area.
Thank you very much for your comments. Are there any other councillors wish to speak? Yes. Please do. Have you got your button on?
Or not, as the case may be. I'm also concerned about the size of this. I think with it being 2-bedroom apartments, I think it's natural that there's probably going to be quite a large percentage that have got more than one car and also potentially some children. I understand that the school is already up to capacity and obviously there's a concern there that there's just not going to be enough space for the amount of cars and also for potential children. But also I'm slightly confused about page 23, section 611, where it says that the application requires a certain amount of contribution, which so adds up to £87,576, but after a viability study was done, there was only the ability to pay £42,000 towards public open space and education. So it seems that the developer can't actually deliver in terms of 106 money what's actually required with a scheme of this size.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Cooper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to concur with the councillor Barber and the question about the balconies. I'm not happy with that. There seems to be some sort of difference here. Refer to item 6.7 on page 22. The privacy of all neighbouring residents is safeguarded through the building, having no side windows, ground floors, etc., etc. But we've heard from a neighbour, which obviously doesn't seem to agree with this.
Thank you.
I'm of the mind. Okay, I think we seem to be singing from the same hymn sheet.
Thank you. Yes, leader of the council.
Yeah, Chair, I've heard what people have said tonight, and if you read policy H7, where specifically we talk about the impact on nearby residents and the impact on local amenity, the words in that, of course, are that providing there is no significant impact on the immediate nearby residents. Now, I accept this as a subjective argument. You live in Beeston, you live in a town, you live in a high-density town, but it doesn't mean that people that live in that area have an automatic right to lose any amenity. And consequently, I think looking at this application, it does seem to be a few too many in too small an area. And consequently, Chair, I would ask that this be rejected and looked at much more carefully to minimise the impact, particularly on loss of immunity to local residents, but also to look at the design and scale. And whilst I accept the planning department's comments about massing in particular, again, this is subjective, you know, to what is actually acceptable in terms of the legality of massing and what it actually means to somebody in real life. The acid test for all this, as I always say to members of the public and officers, is to go and look at it yourself as though you lived there, or your mother lived there, or your brother lived there, or a member of your family. And just say, do you believe that that is acceptable to you? And put myself in that position. I know this site very, very well, where the old cow, where the cow used to be, the cow pub, or the beach tree was called. And consequently, I would urge you to reject this, Chair. I just think it is too much in too small an area, and I think it would have too much of an impact on people who live in that area.
Thank you very much, Leader of the Council. Are there any other? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur with what Councillor Rudovic has said. I think that the developer has actually paid attention to trying to make the, from the artist's impression, trying to make the building in keeping with the rest. What they haven't kept in keeping is the height of the other buildings and the impact on residents. And it's a shame that they've not done that, but I think we need to turn it down because there is a loss of amenity to these people. It's a narrow street, and I certainly would have reservations if my children were in that school with windows overlooking classrooms. Thank you.
Councillor Hanley, thank you very much. I'm going to, unless there's any other councillor, I'm going to bring in Stefan back first, and then I'm going to have something to say after Stefan's finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of a few answers, as best I'm able, to some of the points, on page 17 of the report, it's recorded that the site is 1,945 square metres of vacant land. That's slightly less than 0.2 of a hectare. The 24 dwellings would give a density of approximately 120 to the hectare. It's over 3 times the minimum, but I should stress as well that that's a minimum, not a maximum density, but that's approximately the density. The height in relation to the school was a query raised. In terms of the height, although it's a 4-storey building, the height is very similar to the maximum height of the John Clifford School opposite. On page 21 of paragraph 6.4, it's described that the ridgeline of the roof of the new building will sit approximately 400 millimetres lower than the school building opposite. The balconies, you already have the view of officers and some of the local residents take a different view. In terms of the access to Beeston Town Centre, the land to the rear is not in the applicant's control, so I don't know if that would be possible, but it won't be necessary to walk through the Jasmine Court complex, as there is a publicly available right-of-way immediately adjacent to it, between that complex and the day nursery immediately next door. That's outside. Well, it's publicly available. It's not part of the it's not part of the Jasmine Court complex itself. That's an available through route to the centre of Beeston. It's outside of the curtilage of the flat complex. In terms of the other comments, there were some concerns about looking into the school classrooms. The issue of privacy is one where the impact on the neighbouring privacy is clearly an issue that members can and will take a view on. terms of the school opposite, and as I do say, my own children attend there, and it would be for the school to make appropriate arrangements that the children are not looked in upon as and when they're getting changed for their games lessons. There are options that will be available to them to do that. I would not suggest that that is a planning reason in terms of any potential refusal on this scheme. There were some concerns about too many apartments that were picked up on with other neighbours and residents. Councillor Key mentioned in terms of the contributions that were available. The policy compliant contribution is £87,000. If members were supporting this scheme, that is the contribution we will be asking them to contribute. There was indeed a viability assessment done. The applicants themselves said that they would be willing to pay £42,000. We would be requesting the full policy contribution, and if there was any variation on that, we would report it back to Cabinet initially in the normal process. I think those were all the points that were raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Well, first of all, listening to what the majority of councillors had to say about this, and obviously the ward councillor as well, I think if I can get a first and second agreement here at committee, that I think this planning application should be deferred. I believe that it should come back, obviously. I think that possibly amendments might be required. And now we'll go to legal. But first of all, I have to get your vote if you wish this planning application to be deferred.
Can I comment on that and ask some legal advice here? I mean, I think the way that this has gone seems to be that we're all in agreement that 3 times the minimum amount that we would expect on this site is just massive. I mean, if it was a third of that amount, I think we'd throw it out because there wasn't enough, so 3 times. I think we all agree on that. Surely, can I take legal advice? Wouldn't the best policy be to chuck it out at this point, result of voting it out, and then they'd have to bring forward a revised application, which may be similar, which would have similarities, obviously, but would be, hopefully, reduced number, without balconies, and a few of the other points that we've raised. Legal advice, which is the best way of proceeding with it.
Thank you. Councillor Box would like to speak, and then we'll...
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Barber on this one. I think a scheme that will be acceptable is going to need to have quite a lot of work done in terms of reducing size and whatnot. And I think it would be better to put down a marker by saying, no, this is too big, we have rejected this. And that would be the more appropriate way of going, so that developers could then start with that as a starting point and work down to something more acceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Nicola, could we have the legal side on this? Thank you.
Yes, certainly, Chair. Obviously, it is a matter for the members in relation to considering an application to defer, but it's also a matter for the members to deal with this today and make a decision today, depending on their views. So, as long as there's justifiable planning grounds, if the members are minded to refuse, then that decision can be made.
Thank you. That's very extremely helpful to me. Other comments from any councillors?
Chair was supposed to reflect the views of the committee. He should say, go to the... I'm
asking for it to be deferred, and obviously then a statement will have to be drafted. No.
He's supposed to be chairman.
I need a seconder for my proposal. Okay. Right, we vote for it. Yes, vote on the recommendation now then. Thank you very much, Nicola. All those in favour of the planning application? All those against? Any abstentions? No? Thank you. Could I actually... We're going to have to draft the reasons why the application's been turned down.
Chair, I suggested the reasons, just a suggestion which can be refined, but the wording that I would use on this is that having discussed and debated the proposals, the planning committee considered that the scale and massive of this development would impact upon the community and local residents to their detriment. Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, Chair. I have drafted some reasons. I wanted them to be verified. If I can have a couple of minutes just to get those verified along those lines.
Thank you. Could I ask anyone that's filming at all that if there's a break in this situation, can you just turn the camera off until we start up again? Because some people get overheard. Thank you.
As long as you don't start telling these in post, I'm editing it.
Have a statement. Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
Apologies, Chair. I can go through the reasons. The proposed development, by virtue of its height and positioning, would have an overbearing impact on neighbouring properties. It would not have a satisfactory degree of privacy and amenity contrary to policy H7, the Broxtowe local plan, and policy 10 of the adopted land core strategy.
Thank you very much. And councillors, we come to item 5.3. Oh, it is up on my screen. Okay. Display live extensive illuminated fascia signs and one at the top of Higgins Lane, corner of Junction Higgins Lane. Thank you. First of all, do you have anything to speak on this particular application?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. There are no late items in regard to this proposal. The proposals for advertisements are dealt with on the basis of impact on amenity and public safety. The officer recommendation is it's acceptable on both of those counts. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more councillor wishes to speak? Councillor John McGrath, thank you.
Right, thank you, Chair. The reason a number of people have brought this to my attention, even though it's not in ward, happens to be, if you look at the map, or look on page 35, please, and look at the houses numbered. I can't see them. Look at the houses coming from Ilkeston Road down to the corner before you hit 243. Right, and also the ones on Ilkeston Road that go from the corner up to number, I believe that's 92, which is at the back of the development. There is one, as they call it, a totem pole there. Am I correct, Stephen? That's what they call it on the corner. A totem pole there, and then there's another two outside Higgins Lane entrance, which is to the co-op and the chip shop. The houses there, because of the situation of the lights, the bedrooms are being lit up all the time. That's basically what the problem is. I don't know whether it's planning, of course, but we actually asked him, could there be some way that we could turn them lights off, especially in the winter mornings, right? And this, because the light in all the bedrooms up along there. That has been the problem. And obviously, looking at this, they want to put 5 more signs on. But I don't know whereabouts it's supposed to be putting that, because it's not even marked. Well, that is the problem. The green light, it's actually green because it's the co-op. I mean, the development has actually been fantastic for that area of the town. There's no problem. The problem has only been with the lights, which is on into the residents' bedrooms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor. Right, I'll move to open this item at debate.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any member who wishes to indicate, speak about this particular subject?
Yes. Councillor Goodman?
Yes. Councillor Borough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a question here. It says, where are we somewhere? Somewhere about the lights just been on when the business is in operation.
Number 4.
Is that number 4?
Yeah.
Not be illuminated, yeah, opening hours associated retail unit. Have we got conditions attached on the opening hours of the associated retail units, which would actually put conditions on the illumination of the lights? And if not, should we consider putting opening hours onto the lights? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Watts. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just make sure I've understood this correctly, that this is a retrospective application in respect of all of the lights? It's not suggesting that further lights be put in, that they're all already there. Just make sure. So we're not going to get extra ones. I think if there is conditions on the opening hours, it would be good to tie them into that.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Is there any other councillor who wishes to speak? Leader of the Council, Milan, yes. Thank you.
Chair, what I want to say on this is one thing that really does irritate me enormously is a company that is a national company gets a planning permission for 3 retail units and associated 2 fascia signs and 1 totem pole sign. That's what this committee voted on. Then they go and install something completely different, which was not given permission for, and come back, and because it's already up, you're supposed to check it through on the knob. No, not this time. You're right, I go past that, we'll be going past it again tonight. We go past it every time that we come into this authority. And it sometimes is lit up like a Christmas tree. And I can understand people's frustration, and I can understand people's anger, because that is not what was agreed. When permission was granted, it was for nothing like what you've got now. Now, I understand the need for advertising. We all understand that, and we understand why a particular company wants to advertise its wares. But our policy is quite clear on this. And if you read it, it goes under our National Planning Policy Framework about poorly placed advertisements and the negative impact it can have on the built environment. And you're right, it does. It does shine in them houses like a Christmas tree. So consequently, Chair, I mean, I would take a much tougher line, to be quite honest with you, than I think this committee or its officers would. I would actually make them remove them and go back to the original planning consent and say this is an unlawful development, if you want to go that far. You know, but as far as I'm concerned, Chair, this frustrates the life out of me. Committees has to vote for something, what you get there is something totally different. And I think in this case, it's too much.
Thank you very much, Leader of the Council. Any other councillors wish to speak on this subject? Well, I will. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Oh, hello. Sorry. Yes, carry on.
I'm also concerned for residents with regards to this brightening, illuminating their whole houses. I think it's hugely unpleasant. I've lived across the road from something like that in the past. And significantly, it seems to be from objections from the residents that the approved location would have less impact on them. So I can't see why we would accept this if the residents feel that it would be less of a burden to them to have it in the original position. Then I don't know why we would let them go away with this, quite honestly.
Thank you. Well, actually, any other councillor wish to speak? Okay. Well, actually, I think it does look like Blackpool illuminations. I understand the situation as far as the residents are concerned, and I'm in two minds that one is not happy. And so, if anybody else wishes to speak, then Stefan, do you wish to come back?
Just briefly, Chair. At page 32 of your report, paragraph 6.2.1, members were raising concern about the extent of illumination, and the Highway Authority have given advice on this. They raise no objections. The luminance levels are not above those set out in the 6C's design guide, which is the standard design guide for these types of proposals. That is something you should be aware of if leaning towards a reason for refusal based on the degree of illumination. The manner in which these schemes are determined, as I said in the introduction, is on safety grounds and on amenity grounds. those are decisions of judgment, but as with other aspects of the planning regime, based on evidence. And whereas I do appreciate members' frustration, the fact that these signs were installed without the necessary permission in place is a complete irrelevance in terms of the decision that you come to now. You would need to be satisfied that the signs were detrimental, justifying the refusal on one of those two grounds.
Thank you very much. So, first of all, by Councillor Watts, of course, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I think actually this is a case where it is actually quite relevant that it has already been built, because we can make our judgment based on the evidence of what's actually happening. And what we've heard is that the impact on the neighbours is such that it has a significant impact on their amenity, and therefore that will give us the ground and the evidence for which to refuse the application.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. First of all, then, we will come to, unless there's anybody else, we will come to the vote. All those for, raise your hands, please. All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we'll get the legal.
Chair,
Legal, yes.
And that, having rejected this, then can I move that the legal department has to be satisfied to the evidence, seek the removal of the unauthorised licence signs.
Thank you very much, Leader.
Subject to the satisfactory evidence.
Thank you.
I'm just saying seconded.
I understand from Stefan, Chair, that they have permission for other signs which they can put back. So yes, in terms of the legal situation, we can look to have the existing signs removed if they haven't got planning permission.
Right, thank you very much.
That's moved and seconded, Chair.
Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you. Carry on. Right, the legal team actually will have to go into the Mayor's Parlour, I believe, and go over the legal documents for a statement to be made. So if his cameras move, rolling, can you switch them off for a minute? Thank you very much. Start, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, officers, residents, thank you. First of all, thank you for your time, and thank the legal department for whatever they're coming up with now. I'll ask Stefan to speak on the legal side and planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just from a planning perspective, from what we understand of the concern of the committee, the particular issue is relating to the totem sign and the extent of illumination. I should point out as well that having checked in more detail in terms of the planning history, the signs on the building itself are actually smaller than the signs originally approved. So what we have drafted on is a reason that explicitly relates to the amended position and the degree of illumination of the totem sign, and focusing specifically on the concerns of the committee regarding the amenity of the wider area. And my colleague Nicola has got the reason that she'll be able to read out.
Thank you. Nicola,
Thank you, Chair. The wording that has been agreed with my colleague and reflects the members' thoughts is the proposed totem sign, due to its illumination and position within the site, would be visually intrusive and harmful to the amenity of the area, contrary to policy in paragraph 67 of the NPPF.
Thank you very much. And that's obviously as clear as water. Yes, good. Thank you. we move on to item 5.4. It's coming up now. Yes, here we are. Construct 113 apartments, 27 bungalows, energy essential association, and this is land between Walker Street and Wellington Place at Eastwood. Stefan, would you like to bring us up to date with the application, please?
Thank you, Chair. There's a late item that is referenced in the notes in front of you, details from the applicant. In terms of the amendments from the scheme that was previously in front of committee, well, briefly there are none. Committee asked us to have a look at the road safety and highways issues. In terms of paragraph 1.4 on page 36 of the report, we just rehearse in slightly more detail the planning history in relation to visibility. Condition in regard to visibility, it was considered that a condition requiring the applicant to extend the existing double yellow lines to the south-east of the Nottingham Road Wellington Place junction to prevent vehicles parking within the visibility display would improve the access. A further condition requiring the applicant to submit details of proposed measures to prevent the parking of vehicles in the south-western visibility display was also suggested. These conditions were placed within the original recommendation to the committee. The applicants have advised that while reluctant to go down an appeal route, that's what they would do if they received a refusal or non-determination. They would be willing to enter into an agreement with the council to demolish the public toilets at the entrance to Wellington Place and install drop curbs, albeit that the public toilets are outside of the application side, so it's not directly within the remit to impose any conditions to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there actually any ward councillor wishes to speak? Councillor, Leader of the Council, thank you.
Yes, Chair. There is no objections whatsoever to the principle of development on this site. Let's make that abundantly clear from the outset. And in the sort of 8 years that this site's remained closed, and I was a former pupil at the school, so I do know the site particularly well. It was Eastwood Secondary Modern School now, and consequently, in the years that this site has remained empty, the site has been subjective as well to Section 215 notices for clearing up the growing vegetation and the untidiness and general poor appearance of the site. So we would really like to see this site developed as soon as possible to a satisfactory conclusion. There are, however, some issues that remain unaddressed, and can I say from the outset that it's a waste of time threatening me with an appeal, or this committee, because it's got absolutely nothing to do with making threats about going down the appeal route. I don't care personally. We're asked to make representations on behalf of local people and local residents as elected members, and to use our judgment to the best of our ability in doing what we can for the borough. Now, this site has been the subject of a number of discussions between elected members and officers on site, of which we've remained adamant that we would like to see this site developed. A number of people have contacted me regarding the size and scale of massive, particularly the block of flats and the impact on King Street and Grosvenor Road, which I would like to represent to them. The design and layout is such that it actually overpowers. This is actually Walker Street view. This is going down from the tennis courts. If you look onto the far side of Wellington Place, the actual block where the extra care and flat facility would be is completely overpowering and dominant to those residents who live, I say, on King Street and Grosvenor Road. So I have reservations about the site and the location of the actual layout of the buildings. If you look on there, Chair, that's the old site of the old nursing home that was demolished over 6 years ago now. and still remains an empty site. You know, so what we're saying is that will be completely dominant to those properties because the actual development at the back of it abuts that. And I do have some sympathy with residents. And our concern again is the entrance and exit and egress to the side off Nottingham Road is, in my view, is inadequate. That it is an issue of public safety and an issue of a major concern. Now, if you look at page 39, there are two very small black and white photos on the bottom of page 39. One of which shows you the site up to the access where the old nursing home will be. That on the right hand side, that block there is the site of the old nursing home, Borough Court. And where the gates are there is actually a public footpath, so the road in would actually cut across a public footpath. But what this doesn't show you, and for those people who know this site, and there are people from eastward the locality, know that the access road will actually pass within 2 metres of the front entrance to the nursing home on the right hand side on bottom of page 39, where you can see where that car is actually coming. If you look at that picture of that car, that is the main entrance to the nursing home. This drive will go straight by that. And when we had the meeting on site in particular, and I raised these issues, one of the most patronising things that was said to me, well, this site wouldn't generate much more traffic than the old Beauvale Court. Well, Beauvale Court was built in the 60s for 40 people. This is now we're talking 113 apartments and 27 bungalows. I would suggest that the traffic would be considerably greater. And consequently, Chair, we've tried to, throughout this whole process, try to come to a satisfactory arrangement. Now, that would be the main access onto the main road, where the toilet block is there. In front of the library is the bus stop, meaning that every time there's a bus park, no traffic can move through the centre of Eastwood anyway. So you can't get on and off that side. When we met with the county members and the county officers, pointed that out to them, we waited till buses were there, not a thing could move through Eastwood. Nobody could turn on and off that side. And it wasn't just about parked cars, they couldn't get round the bus. This is the parking, this picture shows the parking where the CAB is, on the volunteer building. So consequently, Chair, I have no problems with the principle of development. I actually, and it wasn't your county, it was us and me that put your site, this site, first into the core strategy, our local plan, in 2004 when you forgot it. Just to remind you a little bit of history. You know, so actually, Chair, it's always been, in my opinion, been an afterthought, this site has. Now, the proposal is great. The principle of development is great. What we're arguing about here is that that access is totally and utterly inadequate to serve a development of this size. Now, we've put forward a number of sensible schemes to the county, none of which everybody agrees with you, and then they put the same plan in again. And residents have asked me to formally object to this proposal on the grounds that the scale and massing of that proposed development would overpower and therefore affect the visibility and amenity of the residents on King Street and Grosvenor Road. So really, all I'm saying this Chair is, I accept the principle of development, this is not the right access, and do not bother threatening me with an appeal, because I will come to the inquiry and fight my corner against anybody. All we're saying is, this is totally inadequate to serve a development of this size. I ask you to reject it, and if they wish to appeal, then that is their right. I will oppose that at appeal. But, Chair, let's have a proper development on this site with a good and right adequate entrance and egress to this site, and let's consider the size and scale of development and the impact on local residents. So it's a development that we can feel proud of and not feel ashamed of.
Thank you very much, Leader. And before we go any further, do you require some water there, Leader? You got? Okay, fine, thank you. Right, is there any members? I'm sure there are. Councillor Morris.
You're going to move the recommendation?
Oh yes, yes. We sorry, we have actually no, because we have a speaker. So there you go. And the speaker actually is Tricia Jesus.
You said no.
have 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening. Have you got the microphone?
I just wanted to outline some technical information regarding the application. Concentrated on highways and the consultations because they're the areas where there seemed to be the most concern the last time this application came before the committee. There was a public consultation which took place on the 4th of November 2013 between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. in Eastwood regarding this application. A statement summarising the event is included with the planning application information. 90 to 100 local residents attended the event, including the leader of the council, Milan Radulovic. He advised Cherry Dunk from NCC Living at Home officer that at the meeting that he liked the scheme but would refuse the plans if the access wasn't changed from Walker Street to Wellington Place. At the time of the public consultation, the access was coming from Walker Street. 36 attendees made written comments. The comments show that the residents were very supportive of the proposals, but were concerned about vehicle access and egress from the site coming from Walker Street. They wanted the access to be from Wellington Place. Attendees felt that extra care use was much more suited to being linked to this end of the site because of the Bogle Court previous development, which is a residential care home. This accommodated, as it stated earlier, 44 residents, a day service, health and county council staff. So it had approximately 35 staff travelling to and from the site each day. This is much higher than a residential property would create of a similar size. Following the consultation, a scoping meeting was held with Nottinghamshire County Council Highways Department to check whether Wellington Place would be suitable. They confirmed the criteria for minor residential roads. The carriageway needs to be 4.8 metres wide and have a visibility display of 2.4 by 43 metres in both directions. After the meeting, the access to the site was moved from Walker Street to Wellington Place, and the scheme was redesigned to fit the new road layout. The planning application was then submitted.
30 seconds on the Thank you.
The residents of Wellington Court, which is a sheltered housing scheme, not a residential care scheme, were concerned, and we did go and speak to them about it. We did check the size of Wellington Place, and it is 5.5 metres wide, the pavements are 1.9 metres wide, and this is a standard for the residential access road under the Six Counties Design Guide. It is considered suitable for providing access to up to 150 houses.
I'm afraid your time's up, but I thank you very, very much. In order to open the debate, I move. Thank you. First of all, can I have any councillors or any councillor who wishes to speak? Yes. Please. Yes, sorry, councillor, yes.
I know the access road quite well, and I totally agree with Milan Radulovic that in its present form it is inadequate, and it butts into a bus stop, and travelling through Eastwood as I do, probably 4 or 5 times a week, the buses act as a sort of chicane, because there's another bus stop one side and the other side. So invariably there's a traffic snarl, and that just underlines the fact, in my view, and the leader of the council's view, that the present access is inadequate. And for that reason I can't support the application.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mark Hanley, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I concur wholeheartedly with what Councillor Radulovic has said. I know this site well as well. My son went to school there. It is a site that needs to be developed. It's stood empty for far too long, and when we're looking for land, because land is not being made anymore, and we need it for housing, it's a shame that this remains empty. I heard what the lady said to us, and on paper it may sound that the road is adequate, but for those of us who live there, no, it's not. I am concerned about the people living in the sheltered accommodation, retirement accommodation, call it what you will, because they're not always fast on their feet, and having been used to crossing a road that has very little traffic on it, to be faced with a road that's got increased traffic on it, there's been no mention of giving them a crossing to get across, and they certainly can't get across the main road unless the two buses are there and they cross between. I am also concerned about the suggestion that they knock down the public toilets without any assurance of where they're going to rebuild them. Because at this end of town, if you have small children who want the toilet, and you get many families going into the library for various events and school holidays and things, where do you take them? The only place that would be possible is a pub. And I don't think that's very good at all. So I would want some assurance that if they're going to knock the toilets down, they're going to put adequate provision somewhere at that end of town. At the other end of town, you can always go to Morrison's, but the end where this building is, I'm afraid there's nothing else there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hanley. Councillor David Bagshaw, then I think it's Councillor Andy Cooper. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm going to state, like Millen, that the priority is that we do need this land developed. But on page 39 it says vehicle access to this development will take from Wellington Place, which currently serves only the library and the sheltered housing scheme for the elderly Wellington Court. This is not true. It actually serves the Volunteer Bureau as well as the library. The library has 4 spaces and the Volunteer Bureau has 4 spaces. The Volunteer Bureau utilises this space more than anyone else because, as the name suggests, volunteers, and they come in and come out all through the day through this access. I'm going to raise another point as well as the police architect liaison officer was a little concerned about...
Excuse me, Councillor, could you tell people actually which page you're reading?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm reading now page 45.
Thank you.
And it says the police architect liaison officer raises concerns with the location of the car parking, which will not provide sufficient natural surveillance and may encourage car crime. And anything that could lead to an increase in crime in Eastwood is a problem to ourselves, and that's not what we want. And it said that Broxtowe will give some surveillance. To me, not good enough. I'm now going on to page 49, where the county highways initially raised objections to the proposal because the pavements weren't wide enough. And then they changed their mind. Why they changed their mind, I don't know. Did they use a different ruler? Maybe they did. Maybe they brought a different bloke in. Or maybe when they leave Eastwood, they go through platform 93 quarters and back to Hogwarts, which is obviously AKA County Hall, and wave their magic wand. It seems to me that, yeah, we did have this meeting in 2013, public meeting. Concerns were addressed about the access to the site. They said they were going to carry on from January 2 years ago, so to me they've had 2 years to get this right, and it still isn't right. This access is not right. Because I do some volunteering in there, going in and out of the road access, the people from Wellington Court, they just walk across the road. You have to be so careful, and to increase the traffic in there, to me, is going to cause potential accidents to these people. And again, that cannot be right. So I have to say that all in all, it says here there will be an increase in traffic. Originally they said, no they won't. Now they're saying, yes they will. We have to be 100% sure that the safety of the residents and the people of Eastwood is tantamount in this consideration, and therefore, you know, we do need a better access, and I think they've had more than enough time to give that thought and haven't done it.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. It's Councillor Andy Cooper, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I have to concur with the fellow councillor Roland. I know this area very well. I live in Kimberley. I travel through Eastwood at least 3, 4, 5 times a week. I don't think I can remember ever driving straight through without stopping. And last week there was a fatal accident on 610, which, you know, it's not a rare occurrence. Everything was coming through Eastwood. It was a complete log jam. Buses, like the fellow councillor says, you know, they act as an obstruction when they stop. The traffic is absolutely horrendous. So, you know, it's got to be a bad decision, this access and egress. It just won't work.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Daly-Watts, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do have a number of concerns about where we are with this. Also a note of surprise. I was really surprised to learn that it was a secondary modern when Councillor Radulevich went down. I always thought it was approved.
I could continue, Councillor Watts.
Thank you. There seem to be two different strands being raised at the moment. One over design issues with building and whatnot, and I do think we would have great difficulty with those because they weren't raised last time when we decided to defer it. I think we would leave ourselves open to criticism if we started raising other matters now. We did defer this because of the concern about the entrance. And I think we've been really badly let down by county highways. Effectively, the applicant said we don't want to change it, so highways said, okay, we give up. And I think there's a really telling comment on page 36 of paragraph 1.4. The highways officer removed these objections as having visited the site. He could see a clear 2-metre wide footway. Why on earth hadn't he visited the site before putting the objections in the first place? I do think we deserve and have a right to expect an awful lot better from county highways than, oh, well, we're going to object until it gets a bit difficult and then we're going to give up. And so I am deeply disappointed with the way that they have behaved. Unfortunately, I think that then causes us very significant difficulties because, you know, we talked in an earlier application about evidence, and the evidence that we will put forward, and I agree entirely with Councillor Radulevich, you know, don't threaten us with an appeal because, you know, I'm a Yorkshireman, I'll do obstinate just for the sake of it sometimes, and if you threaten me, I'm much more likely to be. But when it comes to an appeal, we know full well that the decision or the question will be raised, where's your evidence to show that this highway won't work, when county highways are saying that it does. And I think, put it bluntly, we've been shafted by them. And I'm not happy about it. Because of that, I wouldn't be comfortable voting against this application. I'm certainly not going to vote for it. But I will probably abstain on this because of, you know, what I see as being the errors by county highways and left us in an impossible position.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Is there any other leader of the council?
Yeah, can I just defend myself if I can? If you go to there's a picture you showed earlier on of Walker Street. This was going to be the proposed access site. Could you show that picture? This is why we objected to the access site being on Walker Street.
We're just going through the process at the moment.
We'll get to it.
Super speed broadband. It's going to be the last one, I would have thought.
was their idea of the original access down there. Have you ever seen anything as ridiculous as that in your life? And if you look at the contours of the land are so steep that the access and egress arrangements were totally impossible. That's why we suggested the entrance should be off Nottingham Road and Wellington Court. For a start, it's a level access. What you've done, therefore, is to come straight back and say, well, there's an existing road in there, we'll use that. That existing road is there to serve Wellington Court, the volunteer centre, the CAB, and indeed the library. You know, that would be absolutely impossible to get an access down, if it's down, it's to the left, through that edge, you know. Absolutely impossible. You know, so the idea of moving it onto Nottingham Road, Chair, was to give you a level access so emergency vehicles would be accessing at the point of where they would be most needed, which was the extra care at that particular aspect of the development. What you'd have to do if you had the access down there, if you had an emergency call, an emergency service, was to drive down a ramped hill, round the corner to the far end of the site, would make a nonsense of it. So we suggested, and we thought we'd made some progress by offering a number of solutions about having a straight access in there that would protect the residents of Wellington Court. What's happened since then is every single piece of advice we've given, every meeting we've had has been totally ignored. That includes meeting with the leader, the chief executive, the cabinet member, the highway, the estates officer, and we've got absolutely nowhere. Chair, I understand what Councillor Watt says. I'm quite prepared to fight this one at inquiry because I think it's a very good demonstration of the arrogance sometimes of officers that they know better and that's their job to do it other than local people and local resident safety concerns. And I think that's appalling. I think it's absolutely appalling. I'm asking you to reject this application, Chair. I would sooner have deferred it to go to continue negotiations, but nobody's listening. They never do. And consequently, Chair, reject the application. And if you want to fight at public inquiry, then we will.
Thank you very much, Leader of the Council. Is there any other councillors?
Thank you, Chair. Just to, as a legal advisor, I hear what everyone has said in terms of comments. Obviously, Councillor Watts has touched on the point that I'm going to make in terms of obviously if the members are minded to refuse the application in view of the comments made by Highways, and it is appealed and there are cost implications to the inspector. I think the reasons for refusals aren't significant. Having said that, it is a decision for the members to decide on how they want to proceed in this case. And they have to give regard to material considerations in that respect.
Thank you very much. Right, Stefan, I'm sure you must have quite a bit to say.
Just in terms of coming back on some of the points that were made, my colleague has mentioned as to the potential difficulties in an appeal. Members are aware of the lack of objection from the Highway Authority. That will be something that you will come to a view on. Councillor Radulovic did mention some adjacent residential properties. That was not a reason for deferral in terms of any previous scheme. But to summarise the position in the view of officers, the distances are more than the minimum required. Thank you.
Right, we have to take this to the vote. All those in favour of the application, raise your hands, please. And all those against, raise your hands, please. And those abstain. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm afraid we're going to have to adjourn again for legal reasons, and there's any cameras going on, please switch them off for a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry it's taken so long, but Nicola will read and thank you very much, the legal side.
Thank you, members, for your patience. We've agreed the wording in accordance with what was discussed during the debate. 5.4, the proposed access at the junction of Nottingham Road and Wellington Place is substandard and would result in highway safety problems for road users and pedestrians, contrary to policy 14 of the Broxtowe aligned core strategy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, councillors, we move on to the agenda 5.5. And this application is going to truck a single story front and rear extension. This actually has been with us before. It was deferred last time. Stefan, would you like to bring us up to date, please, on the application? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, it was with committee previously. There is a late item. Not all parish council maintain objections. The scheme was deferred previously with a view to seeing if there would have been discussions possible between the applicants and the neighbouring property, with a view to amending the scheme and reducing the impact on that neighbour. Those discussions have not been fully successful. The applicant states that negotiations were unsuccessful and no amicable solution could be achieved. However, the scheme has been amended and the applicant has reduced the length of the extension by 85 centimetres. The height projection from the side elevation and the distance from the shared boundary is unchanged. The officer recommendation previously was to approve this scheme, and that recommendation remains the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, call for the ward councillors. I think we have Paul Simpson, please. Paul, you obviously know you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I shan't be taking up anything like 5 minutes.
Good.
Get this thing to work, yes. Right.
It is working.
It is working. No, my toy. Oh. Right. Chairman, members of the Development Control Committee, I do not propose to repeat what I said at the meeting when this matter was first discussed. All that I said previously and the comments made by the various members of this committee concerning the excessive size and overbearing nature of the proposal are still very pertinent to tonight's decision. At the last meeting, this committee gave a clear direction to the applicant that the size of the extension was too large and that there should be a meaningful discussion with the immediate neighbour to arrive at a mutually agreeable solution. Unfortunately, the applicant and the next door neighbour have been unable to reach any reasonable agreement concerning this extension. I do not believe in this case that the applicant has fully understood the concerns previously voiced by this committee concerning the scale of this proposed additional construction. This is clearly demonstrated by the token gesture of reducing the length of the extension by 85 centimetres in the revised application. Therefore, I have no hesitation in asking you to simply now reject this application. Thank you, Chair. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. And now we have Mr. Alan Booth, please. Good evening, Mr. Booth. Welcome back. You have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Chair, this has proved a miserable response from our neighbours. Every single approach was made by me to them, I lost count of the number of times they would not negotiate. Instead, they virtually resubmitted December's plans with an 85-centimetre tweak. So the issues remain essentially undiminished. The local parish council, Ward Councillor Simpson, have objected. They've instanced the compromise of the various development guidelines, and both of those parties have highlighted the clear detriment to our amenity. Now, there was a supporting statement with this small amendment, and a quote from it. The application is much needed, particularly for the family, to improve access to the utility area. Well, the family's left home. This is a couple living alone in a full-size 3-bedroom detached, and they're struggling to find room for a washing machine. And what's the solution? They need to increase the ground floor footprint of the current dwelling house proper. You can do this calculation in various ways. You get to a range of 53% to 59%. They're asking committee permission to turn a house into a house and a half, and then a bit more. Well, this is the reality. This application is the project of the eldest son. He's Birmingham based now, but crucially his career is in property management and property development. And so now the motive, the speculative scale of the proposal becomes clearer. I've read this up. It's called a land grab or a garden grab, and the key phrase that comes up is that regarding future valuations, bigger is always better. He's wanting every last centimetre, and that means subjecting Eileen and me to a 34-foot run of solid brick wall, almost 10 feet high, and built virtually touching our home. Now, without permission, he could build out at the side half of the original house width, 11 foot in this case. He's trying for a 64% hike on that to get it up to 18 foot, 6 yards at almost 6 metres. Now, all that we ask, and this is not to suit us, this is a bare minimum to try and live with the situation, is that he makes do with 5 metres out of the 6 he's shooting for. Just leave the final metre alone. Have a breathing space and a bit of daylight with a gated walkway between the two properties. Don't rob us of our deed rights to repair and maintain that side of our home. This is a simple common sense amendment, and it's a commonplace feature if you walk around our neighbourhood. And more importantly, it would still grant our neighbours about a 40% ground floor increase. Now that is a very big extension in anybody's book, and that's before they start on the other side of the property. Now, what's before you tonight is overbearing, it is unreasonable, it's unnecessary, and my wife and myself sincerely look to committee to protect us by refusing the overkill element of the application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Booth, thank you. In order to open the debate, I move item. Please do, Councillor. Thank you very much.
Okay, first of all, sir, that was a really good speech. Have you ever thought of standing for the council?
No.
No. First thing I must say is we must disregard anything to do with the motivation or the person or their profession of the applicant. This is we've got to accept or reject this on planning issues. We've visited the site. We looked at it last time. We were minded to reject it, but we were kind. We allowed them to come up with something better, gave them a bit more time. They've had that opportunity, they've blown it, let's chuck it out and let's move straight to the vote.
Any other councillor wish to speak? Yes, Councillor, sorry, Andy Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't on committee when it first came before us, but no, Mr and Mrs Booth have been in touch with me again. And I did go down to have a look myself this week. I refer to 5.2, page 68, going over to 69, and I'm in sympathy. Proposed extension too large. I think, you know, they've made an amendment of what, 85 centimetres, loss of daylight, overbearing, and I probably shouldn't say this, but my next door neighbour has put 3 extensions on, and you know, not wanting to fall out with them, I wish now that I would have opposed it, but that's another point. But my detached house now looks like a semi-detached, so I've got every sympathy with Mr. and Mrs. Boo.
Thank you. I'll take Councillor Watts and then I'll stop and we'll deal with the next situation.
Well, thank you, Chair. It is disappointing that when matters are deferred for further negotiations, that for whatever reason it doesn't happen. We obviously hear different sides from different views from the different sides, and we don't need to take a decision as to, or take a view as to why negotiation didn't succeed. But we are effectively where we were originally, with a very slightly smaller application. We haven't got the more significant amendments that we asked for, and so the question then is, with things standing as they are, would we be minded to approve or would we be minded to refuse? It seems to me that this application is simply too big. And if you look at policy H9 of the local plan, it talks about extensions will be permitted provided that they don't have an overbearing impact and a significant loss of amenity to the neighbours. That is exactly what is happening here. This is too big, it's too much, and I think this is going to be one of those meetings where we say no to absolutely everything that's on the agenda, and in this case absolutely rightly so. I'm sure there is scope to build an extension that is a significant extension for the householders and also does not have an inappropriate impact on the neighbours, but this is not it. What is being presented with at the moment is too big and too much.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Actually, to be honest with you, councillors, I think it's gone far enough at the moment. I would like to bring Stefan back before I have my word.
I've got nothing substantive to add, Chairman, other than if it is the committee's view, as Councillor Watts and others have specified, that the scheme does remain unacceptably overbearing, we may be able to assist with a potential reason without needing to go out of the menu on this occasion.
Right, I'll take a phase from Councillor Steve Barber. I think I know which way this is going. So all those for the application, please raise your hands. All those against? Carried. Thank you. Now we have legal implications. Do you wish to say something now, or do you want to write up still?
Thank you, Chair. No, the wording for this refusal is prepared, so we don't need time to look at this.
Thank you.
The proposed extension, by reason of its size and proximity to the shared boundary with 3 Cedarland Crescent, would be detrimental to the amenity of the occupants of this property due to its overbearing impact, contrary to policy H9 of the Broxtowe plan and policy 10 of the Broxtowe core strategy.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we now come to information items 6, and we will start on whatever page opens to have it on. Thank you very much, Councillor Watt, or Councillor Ball. Right. Somebody did. Page 74. Is there anybody wish to say anything about page 74?
Yes. Yes, okay. The item there on Paul Merritt Robert Ellis, the third from the bottom, phone line. Change it from mixed use class A1/A2 to class A2. First of all, is this the corner shop that's on the corner of the High Road and I presume it is in Station Road, the phone shop? Why is it class A1/A2 to A2? Why just a typical one? You've got my concern there that seems to be up to answer.
Just that it was a mixed use before, so it's very not
councillors. Thank you. And then we're on to page 75. Page 76. Oh, page 76, Mr. Andrew.
Yes.
Page 76 are we on?
76. Halfway down, just below, electricity substation, James Street. Do we know why it's different? Do we know where we are? No. Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you.
And they'll send you an email or something. Is that all right?
Yeah, fine.
Right, 77, 78, and obviously page 79. I thank you for your expertise this evening.